That night, everyone in the studio wondered why Lady Gaga suddenly went silent. It wasn't the kind of silence you get when someone forgets their lines or loses their train of thought. This was different. This was the kind of silence that makes your heart stop, the kind that tells you something profound is happening right in front of you. Jimmy Fallon had been doing The Tonight Show for years, but he had never seen anything like what was about to unfold. It started like any other Tuesday night taping. The studio was buzzing with its usual energy, the audience was warmed up and ready, and Lady Gaga was supposed to be promoting her latest project with her trademark wit and charm. But then she read that note. And everything changed. What happened next would become one of the most powerful moments in late-night television history. A moment that reminded everyone why human connection matters more than entertainment. If you want to see how one piece of paper transformed a simple interview into something extraordinary, make sure you're subscribed because this story is just beginning. The Tonight Show's studio was alive with its familiar pre-show energy. Cameras rolled into position, the house band finished their sound check, and Jimmy Fallon reviewed his note cards one final time. It was March 15th, 2024, and Lady Gaga was scheduled to appear as the night's main guest. Her latest album had just dropped, and the promotional tour was in full swing. The audience had been particularly energetic during warm-up. Jimmy's producer, Mike DiCenzo, noticed the crowd's enthusiasm as he walked through the studio. Everything seemed perfect for what should have been a straightforward celebrity interview filled with laughs, stories, and probably a game or two. Lady Gaga arrived at 30 Rockefeller Plaza that afternoon looking radiant. She wore an elegant black dress with subtle silver accents, her hair styled in loose waves. During rehearsal, she and Jimmy had run through the expected talking points, her new music, her recent film work, and a funny story about her dogs that was sure to get laughs. But as she sat in her dressing room an hour before taping, something unexpected happened. A production assistant knocked on her door with a manila envelope that had arrived by special delivery just minutes earlier. The envelope was addressed simply to Lady Gaga, The Tonight Show, with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter on cream-colored stationery. As Gaga read the first few lines, her makeup artist noticed her expression change. Her eyes filled with tears, and she asked for a moment alone. The letter was from a 16-year-old girl named Emma from Portland, Oregon. Emma was in the final stages of leukemia, and she had been a devoted fan of Lady Gaga's music throughout her 3-year battle with cancer. But this wasn't a typical fan letter asking for an autograph or a shout-out. Jimmy stopped mid-joke. The entire studio froze. Emma had written about how Gaga's song, Hold My Hand, had become her anthem during chemotherapy sessions. She described listening to it on repeat during her darkest moments, finding strength in lyrics that seemed written specifically for her struggle. But the most powerful part of the letter came in its final paragraph. Emma explained that she had been given only weeks to live, and her greatest wish wasn't to meet her idol, or even to live longer. Her wish was simple. She wanted Lady Gaga to know that her music had given Emma's family peace during the most difficult time of their lives. She wanted to thank Gaga for creating something that transformed suffering into hope. The letter ended with a request that took Gaga's breath away. Emma asked that if Gaga ever had the chance, she should tell other young people that it's okay to be scared, but it's also okay to find beauty in dark places. Tell them that sometimes the best thing you can do is hold someone's hand, Emma had written. Even if it's just through a song. As Gaga finished reading, she realized Emma had passed away 2 days earlier. The letter had been mailed by Emma's mother, fulfilling her daughter's final wish. When it came time for the interview to begin, Lady Gaga walked onto the Tonight Show stage carrying the letter in her hand. Jimmy greeted her with his usual enthusiasm, and they began the interview as planned. For the first few minutes, everything proceeded normally. They discussed her album, shared some laughs, and the audience was thoroughly entertained. But as Jimmy transitioned to asking about her songwriting process, Gaga's demeanor shifted. She looked down at the letter in her lap, and something in her expression made Jimmy pause mid-sentence. "I'm sorry, Jimmy," she said quietly, her voice barely audible through the microphone. "I need to share something with everyone here tonight." Behind the scenes, Fallon made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. Jimmy could have redirected the conversation back to the planned topics. His producers were probably signaling from the control room to keep things light and on schedule. But in that moment, something in Gaga's voice told him that whatever she needed to say was more important than any promotional agenda. "Of course," Jimmy said, leaning forward with genuine concern. "Take your time." Lady Gaga held up the letter, her hands trembling slightly. "I received this today, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's from a young woman named Emma, and she—" Gaga paused, taking a deep breath. "She passed away 2 days ago." The studio audience, which had been buzzing with energy moments before, fell into complete silence. Jimmy's expression shifted from his trademark smile to one of deep attention and compassion. "Emma was 16 years old," Gaga continued, her voice growing stronger. "She had leukemia, and she spent the last 3 years of her life fighting. But her mother sent me this letter because Emma wanted me to know something." Gaga looked directly into the camera, as if speaking to millions of viewers but also to one person at a time. "She wanted me to know that music can be medicine. That sometimes a song can hold your hand when no one else can." Jimmy had interviewed thousands of guests over his career, but he had never seen anyone display such raw vulnerability on his show. He made a decision that would surprise everyone in the studio, including himself. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Jimmy stood up from his desk, walked around to where Gaga was sitting, and pulled up a chair next to her. It was completely off-script, completely contrary to the traditional format of a late-night talk show. But it felt absolutely right. "What did Emma want you to tell people?" Jimmy asked gently, abandoning his role as entertainer and becoming simply a human being listening to another human being. Gaga wiped tears from her eyes and looked out at the audience. "She wanted young people to know that it's okay to be afraid. That being scared doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And she wanted them to know that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the darkest places." The camera operators, seasoned professionals who had filmed countless interviews, found themselves fighting back tears as they continued to roll. In the control room, producers were making rapid decisions about how to handle this unscripted moment, but they ultimately decided to let it continue. "Emma wrote something else," Gaga said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "She said that when you're going through something really hard, you should remember that you're not alone. That somewhere, someone has written a song, or painted a picture, or told a story that's exactly what you need to hear." Jimmy nodded, completely absorbed in the moment. "That's beautiful," he said simply. But this is the moment no one in the studio, and no one watching at home, ever saw coming. Lady Gaga folded the letter carefully and placed it on Jimmy's desk. Then she did something that no one expected. She removed a silver bracelet from her wrist, a simple piece of jewelry that she had worn for years, and placed it next to the letter. "This bracelet was given to me by my grandmother before she passed away," Gaga explained. "She told me to wear it whenever I needed to remember that love is stronger than fear. I want to leave it here, on your desk, as a reminder that Emma's message is still alive." The symbolism of the gesture was powerful and immediate. The bracelet represented connection, memory, and the way that love transcends physical presence. By leaving it on Jimmy's desk, Gaga was creating a permanent memorial to Emma's message right there in the Tonight Show's studio. Jimmy looked at the bracelet, then back at Gaga, understanding the weight of what she had just done. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I'm sure," she replied. "Every time you sit at that desk, you'll remember that someone out there needs to hear that they matter. That their story matters. That they're not alone." The audience, which had been silent throughout this exchange, suddenly erupted in applause. But it wasn't the typical enthusiastic clapping of a talk show audience. It was something deeper, a recognition that they had witnessed something profound and genuine. Jimmy stood up and embraced Gaga, and in that moment, the artificial boundaries between host and guest, between entertainer and audience, completely dissolved. The Tonight Show's studio had become a space for genuine human connection. The interview continued for a few more minutes, but the tone had completely shifted. They talked about the importance of mental health awareness, about the power of art to heal, and about how small acts of kindness can have enormous impact. When it ended, the audience gave a standing ovation that lasted nearly 2 minutes. After the show wrapped, Jimmy sat alone at his desk for a long time, looking at Emma's letter and Gaga's bracelet. His producers found him there 20 minutes later, still processing what had happened. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. In the weeks that followed, clips from that interview went viral across every social media platform. But it wasn't just the unexpected emotional moment that resonated with viewers, it was the authenticity of it. In an entertainment landscape often criticized for being superficial, Jimmy and Gaga had created a space for something real and meaningful. The Tonight Show began receiving hundreds of letters from viewers who shared their own stories of struggle and resilience. Jimmy started reading some of these letters on air, creating what became known as Emma's segment, a regular feature dedicated to highlighting the power of human connection and the importance of mental health awareness. Lady Gaga's bracelet remained on Jimmy's desk for the rest of the season. Viewers who attended tapings would often ask about it, and Jimmy would tell Emma's story, keeping her message alive for new audiences. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from Emma's mother, who called the show a week later. She told Jimmy that watching the interview had brought her family comfort during their grief. She said that seeing her daughter's words reach so many people made her feel like Emma's life had purpose beyond the tragedy of its brevity. 6 months later, Jimmy established the Emma Foundation in partnership with Lady Gaga, focusing on providing music therapy for young cancer patients. The foundation's logo incorporated the image of 2 hands holding each other. Inspired by Emma's letter and Gaga's song, Jimmy often reflects on that night as a turning point in his career. He realized that his platform could be about more than entertainment. It could be about connection, healing, and hope. The Tonight Show continued to feature celebrity guests and comedy sketches, but it also became a place where real stories could be shared and real healing could happen. The silver bracelet eventually found its way to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, donated as part of an exhibition on the cultural impact of late-night television. But its real legacy lives on in the countless people who heard Emma's message that night and felt a little less alone in their own struggles. Emma's story became a reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we abandon our scripts and simply respond with our hearts. And sometimes, a simple note can change not just one person, but an entire audience, and through them, the world. Jimmy Fallon learned that night that his greatest role wasn't as a comedian or an entertainer. It was as a connector of human stories. And Lady Gaga discovered that her music's true power lay not in its commercial success, but in its ability to reach across the darkness and hold someone's hand. In the end, Emma got her wish. Her story was told, her message was heard, and her belief in the power of connection became a legacy that continues to touch lives years later. Sometimes that's all any of us can ask for, to know that our story mattered, and that love really is stronger than fear. The silver bracelet now sits in the Smithsonian, but its true home was always in the hearts of those who understood its meaning. Every night when Jimmy sits at his desk, he remembers Emma's words and Lady Gaga's courage to share them. He remembers that television can be more than entertainment. It can be a bridge between souls, a reminder that we are never truly alone in our struggles. And somewhere, in hospitals and homes around the world, young people facing their own battles hear Emma's message echoing through the airwaves. Hold someone's hand, even if it's just through a song.